Kings Local Schools Board of Education work session to order. Mr. Morrow, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Phillips,
Here.
Ms. Groff, Ms. Cowan,
Here.
Mr. Skrull,
Here.
Mr. Belfrom.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Morrow?
Ms. Groff, Mr. Skrull,
Yes.
Ms. Cowan,
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom.
Yes. Next on the agenda are the reports and presentations. Hand it over to Mr. Sears.
Thank you, Mr. Belfrom, and welcome everyone this evening for our work session. As we get started, we have two reports and presentations and that we're going to talk through a little bit this evening. The first is just to give a quick update. So as over the last couple of weeks, we've had a significant amount of work being done on the planning and beginning mainly the planning portion of the new high school in addition at Columbia project that we are working on. Over the course of the last couple of weeks, we've had tours that have taken place. A large group tour with a number of community members, teachers, administrators, and a couple of our board members were present on that tour as well. We've also had a community advisory team since our last board meeting as well that has begun to analyze feedback and in decision-making for the exact location of the new high school. And we've had a lot of site testing being done, from ecological studies to traffic and engineering studies into geotechnical boring that's taken place also. At this point in time, we don't have any data to report out. We are hopeful in the next week or two that we would have some preliminary information that we can begin to analyze and that we'll kind of talk through, especially as it refers to the desired location of the new Kings High School. SHP has also begun to conduct a significant number of what they call programming meetings, meeting with lots of different groups from the high school and Columbia, looking at what are the programming needs. These aren't necessarily design meetings, but it's just trying to get a sense on the scope and scale of what is needed within the building, and as far as classrooms and classroom space and other athletics, music, auditorium, just trying to get a sense on what the initial requests would be on needs around those. So those are happening. We have a whole bunch of those tomorrow also, involving a lot of our staff at the high school and some of our folks in the room. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes. Charlie from SHP will be here next week at our regular meeting and will provide a more detailed update on exactly what that looks like and some of the takeaways from the information that we're starting to get back. So lots going on. As far as that goes, that we're trying to capitalize on having our staff here and do as much as we can before they exit for the summer. So just want to provide a brief update. Just know for our board and our community, there's a lot happening behind the scenes, a lot of meetings that are taking place, trying to get a sense of that scope. I'll push pause for this. And Mr. Lucky, is there anything you would like to add to anything that I said? You're involved in quite a bit of that work as well.
Just to reiterate, lots of gathering of ideas and data on specific needs at each focus group, we'll call them. So our staff's been amazing at giving great feedback on where we want to go, what's best for kids. So it's been exciting.
Good. So our first presentation this evening, we'd like to introduce to the board and our community, Mr. Mike Mendenhall. Mike works for MCS, is the owner of MCS and Associates. Mike is basically our consultant that is working as the owner's representative for our district. And so Mike's job is to help us work through and analyze the project, work through the details of the project, some of the negotiational pieces, but then the construction pieces as we get into that work. And so we would like Mike to not only introduce himself to the board and the community, talk a little bit about his work, his role, answer any questions that the board has, and then we'll allow it to Mr. Morrow to talk. Mr. Morrow and Mr. Mendenhall will begin to look into what the Yelp process is. So, Mr. Mendenhall?
Good evening, everyone. It's really exciting to meet everyone all at once here. So we're very excited to be joining the Kings team here on a very exciting time for everyone. You know, we get to do this every day. That's what we do. So we never get tired of it. So I think over the next 3 to 4 years, it'll be a very exciting time, be a busy time. There's a lot of work ahead of us, and the board will have a lot of work as well, but it's really good work. You know, every ounce of energy you're putting into this, it's actually going to the kids. So, and that's what you wanted. That's why I think the voters passed this bond issue. A little history on me. Again, I don't want to be too lengthy, but I want you to get to know me, where I've been, what I've done. I retired from the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission in 2018. I worked with them when it was the Ohio School Facilities Commission. So showing my age just a little bit. In 2018, I really seen a void in the market. That's why I started this firm. Worked with districts all over Ohio, and I seen the struggles that they had. Superintendents, treasurers, business managers, they have full-time jobs. So I think with the role that we take on, we really help. You know, any gaps, there's blind spots on every project, and we try to make sure we're covering that. We have the district's best interest in mind every day. We're advocating for you, advising. I like to think, you know, our team, we don't bring a problem to you if one should arise, but we will come to you and tell you what the issue is, what your options are, and what we would recommend and why. We try to make it as easy as possible. We've lived in this industry for many, many years. I think one advantage that districts have with going with us, my years at the commission, I know probably every AE firm, architectural firm. If I use acronyms, stop me. I'm terrible with that. I know them very well. CMR, community, commissioning, subcontractors. So I think the nice advantage districts get is when we're involved in the project, it will start off the way it should, because people know that we know. So let's all put all that down and let's all work together and build the best building that they've ever built for Kings Local. If we have that goal and we maintain that goal, that's exactly what will happen. So our role in the project, we will work with the architect through the design phases. Obviously, Mr. Sears mentioned that we're in the programming portion, getting the programming, but we'll work directly with them through all the design phases to make sure all of your expectations are being met. We will make sure that you're getting the building that you want built. I will say, I would never say anything bad about any firm out there, but I will say SHP does a very good job of working with various committees, maybe even community members of this board, and making sure that they're designing the building that you want. Because at the end, at the finish line, it will be Kings, and you will probably be a little different than everybody else because of all the work that you and many others will be putting into this to get the building, to get the building the way you want it to look, how you want it to feel, how you want it to flow. All those factors will be built into this. So maybe a look back on where we've been. We have done the RFQ, the RFP for the architect. The architect is under contract. We've negotiated their fee. So we're that far. RFQs have gone out. And again, acronyms, if I need to explain what an RFQ is, stop me. I'll explain. but we've gone out for CMR services. They've responded. There were 4. We will be interviewing 4 of them. We have a pre-proposal meeting next Monday with all the firms. That's a time when the firms that are interested in doing the work, being your CM at risk, that's the time to ask any questions about the project, and we'll make sure that we get those answered. We've actually got a date on the calendar for the interviews themselves, and our goal would be at the end of that day, we would be able to make a recommendation on one of the 4. I would open it up for any questions. Again, I want to be mindful of everyone's time. I could stand up here and talk till tomorrow morning, but I don't think anybody wants that. But if there's any questions, feel free to ask. We will be attending board meetings as well. We like to do that. We're here. We're available even outside of board meetings. If anybody's got questions, concerns, we want to make sure that you guys are very happy with the process.
Questions for Mr. Mendenhall?
I thought you were going to say you talked to me before and you don't really want to talk to me anymore. A little worried on that one.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right.
We appreciate it.
I'll kick it back to you here in a minute.
Okay.
So next up, we have an update on the OFCC and the expedited local partnership program. Thank you, Don. So currently we're in the fast track with OFCC. We got involved with them late throughout the master planning process. And then with our passage, we're really rushing with time to get an agreement with them and kind of make sure we're aligned with the OFCC. So right now they're finalizing documents that they asked that the board review and approve in the month of May. We hope to have those at some point this week to be able to send out and give the board plenty of chance to look at by the next board meeting. But if not, then we'll figure out what we need to do from there. But they're working as fast as they can because we were one of few districts that were fortunate enough to pass. So they want to make sure that that we have the partnership if the board elects to move forward with them. One of the big benchmarks that the OFCC needed to accomplish was the enrollment projection comparison. So they did an enrollment study just like we had done back in 2023. They use their own company, their own formulas. They do it their own way. And it actually validated the data that we worked off of for our master plan that we created with SHP. In the last year of the Cropper study, which was 2033.
20.
Yes, 2032, 2033, excuse me. There was a 30 student difference. So that was really validating that we were working off the best data possible, and that Cropper did a great job just as we anticipated. So I'm going to send it back to Mike to talk about kind of the final master plan process and kind of what that means in the OFCC terms, and what are our next steps.
Yeah, with regard to master planning, obviously at the commission, they take the enrollment projections. The master planning is really, there's a lot baked into that. Really, it comes down to square footage, your need for square footage. I think, how the configuration is, what where the classrooms are, where mechanical spaces are, that's never fully defined. It's your master plan. And I think, it's something that'll be a work in progress as we're going through the design phases as well, that may change. It does with just about every district. When we start into the schematic design portion of the design, our very beginning stages, what we know as SD. The programming piece is done. We're moving into schematic design. That's when we're really going to see what this space looks like. The schematic design phase will give you spaces and just general areas. It's more just massing, if you would. When you get into design developments, when you really get into the detail, that's when you're really honing in on, these spaces, whether it's an ELA space, does it belong here or here? And again, there's a lot of work with different groups. As I mentioned before, whether there's committees, community involvement, board, it's just working through that, again, dialing in on getting the building that Kings local school district wants. And that's just a part of it. So that's kind of where this is right now. It's almost, the designers are taking off really in some fashion, a blank canvas. I mean, it's really where it starts, and they start putting the pieces in, the exterior and then moving to the interior. I think the biggest thing is just building orientation, the footprint of the building. Where's it going to be? So there's a lot of work ahead of us, but I think we're off to a pretty good start.
So as I said, the OFCC is finalizing their documents and what the board would ultimately need to approve as a first step to continue working with them. So we'll get that to you as soon as possible, and have any discussions that we need to have. And we'll go from there. Correct. So it's an agreement that we're going to move forward with them, going to meet their specifications. They will have a first draft at what they think the master plan for Kings should be, that will evolve over time. And when I said we're moving very fast with them to get under agreement so we can keep our project moving with them. The first draft of their plan is what it is, a draft. There'll be assessments that need to be done of each of our buildings. It'll evolve a lot over the next 12 months. But we've told them the baseline of our plan is a high school and an addition at Columbia, and that's what our community supported. So they're moving forward with that expectation. But it's going to change a lot over the next 12 months, but they will have a draft plan that they think is appropriate.
With the draft plan will be the amount that we're able to receive.
Correct. So with the draft plan, it'll be a total of a dollar amount that they believe it would cost to basically update our facilities and add new facilities, add new buildings. But they're using assessments from 2014 to do their first draft. So it's really going to change a lot when they get into all of our buildings, because they're trying to estimate what it's going to cost to renovate KME, what it's going to cost to renovate SLE, for example, JF Burns. So they're using assessments that are a decade old, but they have to get something on the piece of paper for us to be able to move forward. So when I say first draft, that's what I mean. It's a first draft using decades old data.
How many drafts do you expect us to go through?
As many as it takes. As many as
I
it
mean,
takes.
Traditionally, when a school district enters one of these, how many do they go
Mike,
through
You
on
have a
average?
better historical lens on like what a ballpark number of iterations we would go through.
2 or 3,
Oh, that's-
there may be.
I was expecting more.
Yeah, there will usually always one. I mean, it's, again, I think they're looking at a district. And again, if you're using old data, and again, I'm curious too on the cost set, that's another thing we'll probably have to address as well, as far as budgeting purposes. I think at the end of the day, it's really the design team and it's the district taking off and starting the design and see how all this starts coming together. Then we get a CMR, CM at risk on board, working through the design phases, we'll be looking at estimating. So we'll see how that is stacking up. There's probably changes that are made. Probably not with the building itself, the footprint, the square footage, but there's always rearrangements of spaces, even in design development, as things get dialed in. So I think, when you talk about a master plan, and again, there's other pieces of this as well. There may be things that the district wants in lieu of what, the district or the commission would consider co-fundable.
Right.
And that acronym LFI, locally funded initiatives, again, depending on what the district wants, again, how they want it to look, how they want it to feel, how they want it to flow. Again, that's the project team will work through that as we're going through the design phases. And again, getting real-time estimates to see how we stack up against the budget, the money that we have. So it's a little hard to explain every little detail, but it's, we have to follow the Ohio School Design Manual in order to get ELP credit. So we have to be mindful of that. And that's one of the things that we keep an eye on too, is making sure we don't put ELP credit at risk. We want to make sure that we leverage all the state dollars that we can get.
So just add one thing, Mike mentioned LFI, and just to reiterate from an acronym standpoint, locally funded initiative means not supported by state OFCC creditable reimbursement. So an example in the project that the community supported was an auditorium. An auditorium is going to be considered an LFI for this project. So that's not factored into creditable reimbursement in this project. So that just, if you hear LFI, that it means it's just part of the 142 million, but we will not get credit for it. But the community supported the auditorium for that. It's just one example. So. Mr. Mendenhall, since you worked at OFCC, can you explain that?
And it's one thing that the commission has never, there's two things. One is auditoriums, and then two is terrazzo flooring. For some reason, we would never co-fund those. So I think when you look at an auditorium, I think they've just taken the position that it's really not for educational purposes.
That's not our stance. That's the state.
That's right. That's right. Right. Yeah, I think they typically look at that the same way they would like a stadium project or a maintenance or bus facility, or new board off. I think they just kind of put it in the same category as the others. I'm gonna, since we're on record, I better be careful what I say about terrazzo flooring, but I just, for me personally, I think it's something that, I'm certainly communicating with folks at the commission who are dear friends of mine. I think that's something that needs to be changed, put in the design manual as well, because honestly, we've gone through this many, many times, and you put terrazzo down, it's there forever. So, I mean, I know the first cost is much higher, but I think when you think longevity, you're not coming back. And I spent a lot of years at the commission going around the state cleaning up messes. That was one of the things too with floor tile. It's, that was the old VCT. Now they have vinyl enhanced tile or luxury vinyl tile. So, I mean, the quality is going up, but I still go back to, it's hard to beat terrazzo.
Any more questions?
The importance of a level floor.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate you
Very
being here.
welcome. Very welcome.
So next up, we have an issue on, or an update on the actual bond issue, which is getting the money to pay for the master plan. So we have Andy Brosart with Bradley Payne here to talk about where we're at in that process. Andy's been to community forums, he's been to board meetings, but just to introduce him one more time, he's part of our financing team, and Bradley Payne are the municipal advisor piece of the financing team. They have a fiduciary duty to the district to do what's best for the district and the community as we navigate this world of actually getting the money to pay for the project. Don, could you please pull up the next presentation?
Mike, you want to also,
And yes,
more importantly to me than as legal counsel.
introduce Brenda with Dinsmore also in the audience. She's keeping us compliant throughout this process.
And legal, yes.
Yes, and legal. And then obviously, you guys know Kent Cashel with RBC. He makes up the third piece. So Kent actually sells the bonds for us to get the money. But yes, Brenda's a King's resident, and I've worked with her for a number of years, and her and Dinsmore do a great job. Yes.
Good evening, and congratulations on the passage. What we're going to talk about tonight is just a little bit an update on current market rates and I guess trends, if we can define where trends are going on interest rates, overall strategy and the goals, and then walk through maybe a little bit of the timing. But what you see here before you on this chart is the 20-year bond buyer general obligation index. So it's 20 bonds put together, and it's snapshot of where the market is today. I always like to refer to this as maybe the New York Stock Exchange end of day interest rate. And you can see to the far right where we're at today. So a lot of noise in the market about, where rates are at. There has been a lot of discussion about inflation and possible Fed interest rate cuts. I think at one time there was maybe 6 projected cuts this year. Then it was 0, now maybe 2. So it really kind of depends what's the way the wind is blowing with economic data. Our market, the municipal bond market, and what you're going to be issuing into always moves ahead of any Fed action based upon what the market thinks is going to happen going into those meetings. In the last couple of days, I guess Friday, we had some positive, bad news is good news for you right now, right? Bad news makes, interest rates come down. And I see you start to watch the markets as you have fun going into this whole issue, and we get, the next 2 months into finally getting the bonds priced. But historically, again, still very attractive interest rates in terms of borrowing for long-term projects like this. Next slide, please. So that was the spot rate, what I like to call the spot rate in the market. This is, if you recall, we talked about this one of the meetings we had. This is the yield curve. And the gray bar there represents the high and low going all the way back to 1991 to May 1st. So again, just give you some perspective as to where rates are at. Again, not at all-time highs, not at all-time lows, really sort of in that middle there in terms of what interest rates are at. And again, as long as I've been doing this 26 years, this is the longest inversion we've seen, meaning the front end of the curve is higher than a good portion of the rest of the yield curve. And if we get more news relative to, inflation coming down or it being stable, that front end will come down more. But again, we are issuing bonds over the long term. And so you're going to see interest rates at the long end really sort of flat, if you will, which is an interesting yield curve for all of us bond geeks who like to see this stuff. So I will point out, though, in terms of the interest rates, keep in mind that, we're going to have the opportunity to refinance this too. And so the strategy, and we're going to talk about it in a little bit, is going to be made up of a fixed rate bond issue that's going to go out for the term of the levy. And so you'll have, depending on can't really say right now when that first call option will be. It really depends on the market, investor sentiment, but typically it's 7 to 10 years. And so that's sort of the lockout period to get fixed rates from investors. They'll give you fixed rates for a long period of time, but they also want to have some investing protection. And so usually it's 7 or 10 years. And you've done that before in terms of taking advantage of refinancing opportunities. Again, just the last chart here, and I got to maybe chart happy when Mike and I were talking about this, but I tossed this in here because it gives you an indication if you look at where interest rates, and it's hard for me to read even with not my glasses on, but what that gives you an indication of is where interest rates were at for the all-time high since rates sort of went up, and then they came back down. And so the good news is, again, in the last couple years, we're not at the high, and again we're seeing some opportunity where it's coming down. And in fact, the last 2-3 days, interest rates have come down 0.1%. So hopefully that trend continues as we move closer to getting the bonds issued and the notes issued for your project. Can we go back to that first slide? If I think it's the agenda. There you go. So the first and foremost, we had a couple meetings with the district after the approval, and the number one goal is to stay within the commitment that was placed before the taxpayers. And we see no issue with doing that. And so our strategy is going to be one that involves issuing some fixed rate bonds. Right now, the estimate is about $100 million in bonds out of the chute, and then $24 million in notes. And so the 1-year note gives us the ability to stay flexible with those payments and make sure we manage the millage promise that we outlined, which again, no problems hitting that at all at this point. The 1-year note, so the fixed rate bonds is a one-time thing, and so that's done until we decide to refinance that. The 1-year note will be back again next year, middle of the summer, to refinance that. And at the time, we have the option to even go to fixed rate bonds at that point. The strategy is you're going to see us for a while, is that probably over the next, as of this time right now, maybe the next 6 years, we're going to stay in notes in order to be able to manage that millage and manage the whole debt service approach with this strategy. And that's a common strategy that's been used many times over, but just gives us better flexibility as it relates to the promise related to the millage. So in order to do that, I'm going to skip down to the last one there, Y124 million. You've got 2 pieces of legislation in front of you that are both $124 million. One is for fixed rate bonds, and the other one is for a one-year note. The reason why we chose to do that was to give us the utmost flexibility. And so right now, like I said, we're looking at $100 million in bonds, but let's just say something crazy in the market happens and rates drop significantly. We may decide to move over to a more of a larger bond issue and instead of $24 million in notes. And so that's why we've decided to go with the full amount for each side. There's no way that we're allowed to issue, $228 million in bonds and notes. It's going to be the total of both of them together will be $124 million, but we wanted flexibility as we go to the market to see what works best for the district. That's the reason for both of those issues. We are looking for approval at the next board meeting, the 14th. And then from there, the schedule will be, I think documents are already out for preliminary official statement okay. The preliminary official statement, the official statement is a document that describes the district. It's got a lot of information, demographic, financial, describes the election history, so those types of things about the district. And we'll take that document when we're done. And early June, you're going to go and have the rating meeting with S&P, which is the one I think we're utilizing in this case. And after that, about a week after we have that meeting with them, we'll get the rating report back from S&P, and then we'll be ready to price the bonds. We're hoping for the week before July 4th. We want to stay away from July 4th since it falls, I think, is on a Thursday. The whole investing world probably is going to take off that week, so we don't want to be in the market. So we're probably going to hit that Wednesday or Thursday before, or if we have to slide, we will slide completely after the week of July 4th. So those are our next steps. Happy to answer any questions you might have for me or legal.
Questions? Mr. Broussard? Nope. I just have a comment. I like yield curves and graphs, so thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, I left like 6 of them out, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The more the merrier. Yeah,
Yeah.
hey, the more the merrier.
I think I'll just add that in addition to meeting the obligation to our taxpayers of no millage over 7 for all of King's outstanding debt, we also want to make sure we're maximizing the amount of interest that we earn on the money that that we're going to hold until we actually start having to pay down bills. So Andy, Kent, and Brenda have done a lot of work behind the scenes to say what's kind of that balance of us maximizing interest earned versus keeping our promise to our community when they approved this bond issue. So I know they're talking almost every other day, it seems like, trying to make sure they have the right strategy and right amounts and right plan. And that'll go right up into the day that this actually gets done at the end of June.
That's right.
Speaking for the community, we really appreciate that, trying to make sure and maximize interest, but yet continuing to follow the due diligence of making it just what the voters approved and trying to even help some with reductions in the future.
Yeah. Great. Appreciate it,
Yep.
Andy.
Thank you.
And Brenda, appreciate it. All right. Well, Mr. Morrow, next on the agenda are the discussion items for the treasurer. So we'll keep it with you, sir.
Thank you. Number 1 and 2 are just the typical monthly meeting minutes. I ask that the board take a look at those and let me know if you see any issues prior to the meeting. Gonna kind of lump together as number 3 and 4. So May is forecast month for all districts in Ohio. They have to prepare what they believe their current year's financial picture looks like and then project into the future for additional years. So I've included on number 4 the forecast report. That's pretty long. It's 23 pages. There's some summaries that actually show the forecast, but then it goes line by line explaining what every financial line that we look at is, and then the assumptions that we're making for each of those lines and why we think that they're going to be where they're projected. So I'll have a more formal presentation at the regular meeting, but I wanted to make sure the board had this well before approval so you can read through and we can talk about any questions, concerns, or anything that you see. I've also added a second document. If you remember last month, the board approved basically moving money from our general operating fund to our building fund if we have to pay any bills before our financing team is able to actually get us money from bond issuances and note issuances. So it's really skewed the current year's financial picture compared to the forecast when it was last submitted back in November. Because we essentially added $2 million in expenses in the general fund when we moved that money over. It's not a true expense, it's an on paper. So I wanted to give the board basically a forecast that gets rid of that extra $2 million and the impact that it has on our finances. So when you look at this one, it's a more true number of this is our revenue exceeding our expenses this year. This is our expenses exceeding our revenues in future years. I just kind of wanted to, it looked so weird when I looked at current year and it said that the forecast was off $2 million here and $2 million there. It's like, well, it's not really off that much. It's on paper off that much. So it gives the board a clear picture of what our financial future actually looks like, getting rid of those paperwork kind of line items. So that's why I lumped together as number 3 and 4, because that document on 4 also gives the picture of what our current year looks like with those items removed. A pause. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? Okay. Number 5 is the VFW scholarship. Last year, they reached out to us and wanted to give a $5,000 scholarship to one student. And then this year, they decided to continue with Kings and offer 2 $5,000 scholarships. So I met with them it was about a month ago and actually got the $10,000. So two very lucky students are going to get $5,000 each if the board approves this scholarship for this year.
Yes.
It's fantastic. They're great. They're great people to just go hang out with for a half hour and talk. Then 6 and 7 are the resolutions that were described by Mr. Broussard, and then the public records log.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Morrow? I think I speak for all of us. We'll just preemptively thank again the VFW. That's quite the contribution. A second, Mrs. Groff, on that. All right. Next on the agenda are the discussion items for the superintendent, Mr. Sears.
Yes, thank you. 2 items this evening. The first one will be up for approval next week. The 351 candidates for graduation for the class of 2024. We're very excited about commencement taking place on May 19th at 10 a.m. at the Cintas Center. Hope everyone can make it there. Just a tremendous event, but just want to congratulate all of our graduates for the class of 2024. We'll have a few more opportunities to do that, but that list will be, the board will take action on that next week ceremoniously to commend our students for their accomplishments in graduating from Kings. So it's exciting.
It is.
And the next one I have is approval for a field trip for the 8th graders for next school year in October to do the traditional 8th grade Washington, D.C. trips. This is a proactive measure so they can begin securing a lot of the contracts and set up for that. So two things for me this evening.
Any questions for Mr. Sears? That is our biggest vote of the year. I think the last couple of years I've encouraged people to watch that. Just that's when you're official. No one watches. They just show up. All right. Next on the agenda are the discussion items for the assistant superintendent regarding HR and business. Hand it over to Mr. Spinner and Mr. Lucky.
Thank you, President Belfram, Kings Board of Education. There are 4 items under our purview this evening, starting with personnel. One item of note on our personnel items, May is when we traditionally make our contract recommendations following evaluations and our collective bargaining agreements for both certified and classified staff. Just as a reminder, under our certified contract, for the first 3 years of a teacher's tenure here in the district, they receive a 1-year contract each year. In year 4, they can receive up to a 2-year contract. Every subsequent year following that, they receive 2-year contracts if recommended. Teachers can apply for a continuing contract if they are in the district for 3 consecutive years and 5 years in the state of Ohio in education. Our classified staff, their first year, they receive a 1-year contract. Second year, they receive a 2-year contract, and 4th year, they would receive a continuing contract. Okay. Item number 2 has to do with Ohio High School Athletic Association membership agreement. This is also traditionally done in May as it expires in June of each year. This permits us to participate in all OHSAA sanctioned activities and sports. Number 3 is our Southwest Ohio Council of Governments resolution and substitute teacher pay. We've been members of the COG for a few years now. They've assisted us in filling our substitute or our teacher vacancies on a daily basis throughout the district. Participating in the COG opens us up to substitute teachers that we can find throughout the 4-county area. And it allows us to cast a wider net. You'll see that we are competitive with area school districts with regards to substitute daily rate of $125 a day for a substitute teacher. Finally, number 4 is an update on job descriptions for our teacher leaders, our department chairs, and our content coordinators. We're updating these to clarify language per our KEA contract. We're also renaming positions to more accurately reflect position requirements. And we're adding departments and areas to eliminate confusion on ownership of responsibility in all of those areas. And those recommendations for those positions are on the personnel items as well.
Any questions for Mr. Spinner?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spinner. And I would be remiss because I get this question 3 to 4 times a day. Mr. Lucky, could you give us an update on the construction here in our beautiful thoroughfare past these buildings?
Love to.
I'm not picking on you. I just
Oh, no.
ask because
Yeah.
I get asked I think we all get asked about this all the time. So I just,
First, thanks everybody for considering the safety of our kids as they do matriculate around this part of town. Lots of things going on directly behind us here at KEC with curbs going in and just patience that everyone's had through this process.
absolutely.
So the flip side of the hospital is now heavy underway that everybody's feeling on the Jimmy John side. And on the north, there will be, I think we've talked in the past, there will be a temporary roundabout drop in at Mesa Mara Millgrove and Columbia Road here. Really, as soon as school lets out, they've actually already started working on that a little bit. And then we are soon to see a shutdown at Columbia and Davis for a roundabout that will be going in there, more permanent roundabout that will be located right there. So you've seen houses get torn down, power poles be relocated. So again, thanks for the patience. Know that we are working through that temporary shutdowns and things with bus routing already for fall of next year. So to be continued. Those are the things I'm aware of. I become made aware of things every day. We're hopeful that back here at KEC in the back over the summer, everything closer to the school will be finished for the fall. It will create some fun for summer camp. So be on the ready for that. But again, lots going on, a lot of growth, a lot of things happening around us that are positive.
Right.
Painful to get to, but
Yes,
positive.
absolutely. And then I think most of the questions I've got, I think this might impact some of my colleagues, the 48 going from 22 and 3 up to
Mhm.
Mason Mara. Like, is that expected to be at least the street portion done like over the summer prior to school, or do you know?
Everybody's trying to get Kroger done
Yeah.
as quick as possible.
Yeah, it is
That's
coming up
really
fast.
the big driver of everything through there. And then lots of future talks on what 48 looks like between 22 and 3 and 71.
Okay,
So
appreciate it. Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
yes.
The only one you didn't mention anything about that someone asked me about, and I said, well, I'm sure I'll hear about it tonight, is the tree clearing on Kings Mills Road. On across the street from Sinclair. So it's,
Other side of the highway.
Yeah.
They've started clearing
I
over there.
did see that.
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything about
I
that. I
don't know.
did see that.
okay.
The pieces that we're more aware of are closer this way. So that Great question.
Someone was concerned apartments would show up unannounced.
Seems to be the new
And I-
thing.
Yeah.
Haven't heard anything on that front from a zoning perspective or anything like that yet.
Okay,
Sometimes we can be late to that party.
hopefully they just are clearing it so they can sell it. To,
Appreciate your hope.
to
Yeah.
a company,
Big business.
business.
Appreciate it, Mr. Lucky.
Davis is down towards Loveland on the south side of
Yeah,
22 and 3.
It's the other way,
Over-
yeah.
Over 22 and 3.
So there'll be 22 and 3, a roundabout at Davis and a roundabout at Fields Erdel.
It's right before you get to Smythe.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Dip in the road.
it's the real curvy.
All right. Next on the agenda are the discussion items for the Assistant Superintendent regarding the educational programs. Mrs. Martin, Mr. Freeman.
Good evening, everyone. So we have two contracts that we'll vote on next week, Warren County ESC and Hamilton County ESC. Typical stuff, as we always see in those contracts, from teaching and learning, gifted, attendance truancy, homeschool, special ed, student programming, they're all in there. There are a couple notes I would point out. Warren County ESC, some of their programs prices have gone up. So I think Mike put that in there about the increase. Really wasn't a staff increase, as more of a programming increase. And Hamilton County had a small increase too. We do have more students attending a Hamilton County program, so that contract went up a little bit next year also. Lorraine and I are meeting with Butler County this month, so we'll have the Butler County ESC for you in June. So I'll just take any questions around the contracts if you have any.
For those listening who aren't as familiar, can you just give a brief explanation as to why we use Warren County?
Yeah,
Hamilton
yes.
County, Butler County?
Yes, you guys hear the spiel from me every summer, right? So all three of the ESCs do have some items that are different, and they sometimes don't compete. So an example is Warren County and Butler County have an agreement that Warren County will do interpreters, Butler County does the teaching of the hearing and deaf, and audiology. So we do look at each ESC a little different on what they give to the school districts. Sometimes they have the same items and might be a price difference. They also have different programs. Both Warren County and Hamilton County and Butler County all now run student programs that we can place students in, whether that might be an outplace during their school years or an adult type of programming, preparing them for the adult world. So I'll have a little bit of different programming around that. That's where we do OTs, PTs, psychs, different staffing, because depending on the school year and the enrollment, we would look at those numbers differently. So it's not something that would keep year to year the same. We just look at it based on our student enrollment. We also do some of our gifted, attendance out of there, depending on student enrollment. So some of those are just one day type of people a week. Does that make sense, Deb? Does that cover it?
The increase consistent with previous years, Mike, or is it?
Oh, we actually saw a little bit more of an increase last year.
Okay.
Warren County's been working on not being the lowest paying school in the county, basically. So they're having a hard time with staffing some of their programmings because they've consistently been the lowest paying school in Warren County. So they've kind of phased in an increase. But some of this specific items that Dana referred to went up pretty substantially because the kids are different and they're changing programming. So I've been involved in meetings with teaching and learning when they're talking about why they're changing, what they're changing, and why they're having to change it. So in most cases, it's less than last year, but some things did go up more.
I think one of the reasons we also go a little up and down every year is depending on our enrollment of students. A few years ago, we had 6 grade 23s, we call them. They're finished with 12th grade, but they're an adult type of program. This year, we only have 2 in a program. So you'll see from students, if they come back or if they attend a program, every year that enrollment's a little different for us. So that changes our numbers too.
Any more questions for Mrs. Martin? Mr. Freeman, you're off the hook today. Next on the agenda are items presented by the board. Did we have anything this evening? No? All right. Let's get to the fun stuff.
Can I just add one
Oh,
thing? I
yeah.
just don't want to cut you off there. I just wanted to, just to take a second. This is Teacher Appreciation Week. Okay, so I will, Mrs. Groff, I will lend that to you.
And all of us. I mean, even. Thank you. All of them. Our kids are amazing and. they're
Absolutely.
amazing for each and every one.
Well said, Ms. Scruff.
We appreciate our teachers and all of our staff tremendously. And I will say we had the wonderful opportunity as a team today to visit all 7 buildings. And every staff member just to do a little small token of our appreciation. Thanks to Mrs. Gould for all her organization and work on that. We apologize to the many of our locations that we completely disrupted their environment and dance parties broke out. But it was extremely fun. A couple of the cafeterias, we have video on. We were playing music extremely loud, but we had fun. And it was just a nice, just small thing from us. So we just can't repay our teachers and our staff enough for all that they do each and every day for our students. So we're very fortunate in Kings, and it's the least we could do just on our end. But I know that we have a tremendous staff, great teachers, great support staff, and we're thankful. So.
All right. It's hard to follow that. Do we have anything else to present today or share? All right. And with that, looks like we have an executive session. We'll be entering into executive session. Let me see here. For the following purpose, to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official. And as always, this is our last item of the agenda. So upon the completion of executive session, we'll be adjourning the meeting. So with that, may I have a motion to enter into executive session?
I'll make that motion.
I will second the motion. Mr. Morrow?
Ms. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Belfrom,
Yes.
Mr. Skrull,
Yes.
Ms. Callan.
Yes.
Ms. Groff.
Have a good night, everyone. Thanks to all of our guests for coming.